Hey everybody, welcome to another Q&A video. But in this video, we're going to do something a little different. I brought my good buddy, my good friend, Dre VashSky to go over some of your questions. We're going to answer these together. Dre, how you doing, buddy?
Doing pretty good. How about you?
I'm doing great. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Tell the good folks at home where they can find you.
Best way to reach me is on Twitter at VashSky. That's at V as in Victor, ASHSKY.
Perfect. So let's dive right in. So the first question comes from It's Adrian. Okay. And he's asking, with Splash Mountain retheme happening soon, I have two questions. Number one, are you surprised Winnie the Pooh managed to outlast Splash Mountain? Number two, what is the future of Critter Country after the retheme? So what are your thoughts on this, Dre? What do you think about about Winnie the Pooh outlasting Splash Mountain, and what the future of Critter Country is after the Princess and the Frog retheme?
You know, it's interesting because while this retheme is going to be going on in Disneyland in California, I mean, you know, it's going to revert back to its original founding of Bear Country. You're only going to have a bear in Critter Country rather than the critters. You know, that's going to be the kind of interesting thing between this whole point. You know, it's very interesting. Look, Winnie the Pooh was installed where it was because back in the day, back in the 90s or early 2000s when this actually took place, there were a lot of, obviously there was a lot of market research coming in. Paul Pressler, retail guy, understood the game, understood the ball. What they found in their research was that Winnie the Pooh, at least back then, was the second most popular character behind Mickey Mouse. So the marching orders were, get him into every single park. I don't care how you do it, we're going to do it. And unfortunately, that turned into the whole Mr. Toad's incident out in Florida. That was unfortunate. And the Bear Country incident or the Country Bear Jamboree incident in Disneyland, which is interesting because they took the Country Bear Jamboree out of Disneyland, like right after it hit theaters, or almost on the day it hit theaters. The
Wow.
Country Bear Jamboree movie. You understand? You know that happened, right?
Yeah, I never put two and two together, but yeah, come to think of it, yeah, that's exactly what happened. Like it was around what, like 97-ish, 98-ish?
No, it would have been like 2000 something, 2002 or so. It was early, but yeah, no, the movie came out and like around the day the Disneyland attraction closed, and that's where you get the left hand, right hand, not knowing what they're doing. That's why the divisions, at least before COVID, they used to meet, like the heads of each division meet like on like a weekly basis to prevent those things from happening. So that way everybody knows in lockstep what the other's doing. If we're having a big product here, how are we supporting it in the other divisions and so forth? That's kind of the whole thing. Anyway, back to the question. I don't think the theme's going to change all that much. I think the theme, I think it naturally flows into New Orleans. I honestly, I think the fit is far more perfect out in Disneyland than it is in Florida with the whole Princess Tiana kind of New Orleans thing. Bayou, it's right next to New Orleans Square. I think it all just works. I think it all just flows really, really nicely out in Disneyland. As far as what happens afterwards, well, I mean, I'm hearing good things from the redo. They are going forward with it in Florida. Right now, they have internally they've stopped I think like $900 million worth of capital expenditures. So anything that's not like pressing, they're just not going forward with right now. So that means like Epcot. Okay, we gotta figure out what we're gonna do with Epcot because it's completely destroyed. We're getting materials in for Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway. We're still going forward with the Star Wars Hotel, those kind of things. So from Florida, they're definitely doing it really, really soon. In California, from what I understand, because the park is closed right now, it doesn't make much sense to start something like that up. There's so many barriers to entry just to get in the parks open right now. Remember Haunted Mansion still taking apart Snow White, still taking apart the carousel, all these kind of things. It's like, okay, for this kind of thing, it's much better to direct these resources to much more pressing issues than a refurb on this scale, although it is coming.
Yeah. Well, this is an interesting retheme, and I agree with you. I think that actually, Princess and the Frog as an IP straddling both New Orleans Square and Critter Country is a perfect attraction for that area,
Yeah.
In terms of like what's the future though of Critter Country, that's a tough one because
I think it is. Yeah, it's really interesting.
It's tough, yeah, because if Disney is kind of damned if they do, damned if they don't in this, because if they annex Splash Mountain to New Orleans Square, then you're left with a weird situation for Critter Country, because when you go down that little corridor where Splash Mountain's on your left and Pooh was on your right, so like would Pooh like essentially be the only thing that's in
its own
Country?
like land?
Yeah, it'd be kind of a weird, like the line drawn right in the middle of that pathway almost, right?
Yeah.
It'd be kind of a weird divide. But then if you take, the Princess and Frog retheme and make it part of Critter Country, it fits Critter Country, but it's more on the New Orleans kind of theming side.
It's more the bayou.
It's more bayou, yeah.
Kind of the
Critter.
I don't know. Is it like is the theme in Critter Country like the American Northwest, like the what would you say? What would you say the theme of Critter Country is right now?
It's
is it Southwest? I'm guessing it's like I don't know, foresty Southwest right now.
Yeah,
is that what it is?
I think so. I mean, I don't know, because then you have Pooh, who's like English.
Yes,
like,
so that I was just going to bring this up. That was the kind of thing before, right? Because they were moving in Pooh to this area, but it was like, well, this is supposed to be in the 100-acre wood, and the English forests where Pooh would be a little different than the American,
right?
Southwest forests, if you will. I guess it's supposed to be southern, but the foliage isn't 100% correct for that. I don't know. I mean, it's. And we'll get into this when we get into some further questions, but the whole thing of themes and like cohesive areas, as these things go on, these things have to be malleable, and I think that's what we're saying. I think you will have, in my best estimate, what I would say would happen, it would be an extension of New Orleans, but the bayou of the New Orleans surrounding area, and how that flows into maybe you go a little bit more north to other areas of the developed South in Georgia or Alabama. That I would probably lean in that direction. But you've already got some interesting things happening, right? You're going to have New Orleans, bayou, this region we can't quite put our finger on, and then Star Wars Galaxy's Edge. I don't know. I think it all I think it all flows. As far as hard set themes, you got to be malleable a little bit.
You got to be.
I think it'll be all right. But my best estimation would be that Splash Mountain take on the more bayou of New Orleans.
Definitely, I agree with you. Do you think it's possible that, because you mentioned, and you were absolutely correct in saying this, Pooh was kind of like, Pooh is timeless and he'll always be around. But Pooh was really a hot commodity back in like the early 2000s. Yeah. Do you think it's possible, because his time as like a super fad has sort of run out a little bit, is it possible they remove Winnie the Pooh and make the entire area New Orleans Square? Do you think it's possible we see the death of Critter Country? Not to be super dark, but
but do you think that... So Critter Country as we know it is definitely going to be different. Just after this retheme on Splash Mountain, it's going to be it's going to be different in pretty substantial ways. As far as Pooh goes, that's an interesting question. What was it? The Winnie the Pooh movie that came out, the 2D animated film that came out, it was right around the time that Princess and the Frog ironically came out. Yes. A few years ago. That was actually a push actually a mandate on John Lasseter's table to reinvigorate the Pooh franchise, because as you said, it was kind of tapering off a little bit, and they wanted to see those merchandise numbers, back to where they should have been. And so it has been waning. That movie wasn't 100% successful in doing that, but I can see Winnie the Pooh going away. The thing is, and we'll get to it, anything going on with any of these parks outside of what's already been announced, I'm hearing like 4 to 5 years.
Wow.
I'm hearing let's circle the tires in 4 to 5 years on anything, which is why you have somebody like Joe Rohde saying, "Okay, I'm out." It's like, hey, this is how it's going to go. I can be around for maybe 2 to 3 years. I can't be around for 4 to 5 years. So it's but that's what I'm hearing. So anything regarding Winnie the Pooh, his future, 4 to 5 years.
Wow. Interesting. All right. Well, thank you. Thank you, Adrian, for the question. It was a great one. So the next question comes from Grant J's Disney Collection. And Grant is asking, I'm sorry. I'm jumping the gun here. My apologies. Hold on. Next question comes from Sam Chat, actually. Sam Chat is asking, what are your thoughts on the new Castle of Magical Dreams at Hong Kong Disneyland? And how would you feel if it ever tried to do this at Disneyland in California? So what are your thoughts, Dre? What are your thoughts on this is the first time Disney has ever kind of like reinvented an existing castle. What are your feelings on that Hong Kong reimagining?
Look, I really like the idea of these castle parks having a unique identity in some way, especially with their icon being their castle. I think castles should be unique for the parks. I really do think they should have their own identity, and identity flow throughout these parks, these castle parks in these various continents, countries, so forth. I'm happy that I'm ecstatic actually that they got something unique to them. It was always like it was a cookie cutter of Disneyland, but I don't know. It always felt a little sterile. Always felt like yes, it was a copy, and it should feel as magical as maybe somebody going to Florida as Tokyo, right? Because it's both Cinderella castles. It didn't really feel that way though. It almost felt like not a Chinese knockoff, but maybe a Disney knockoff. It was like, it really should be its own thing. So I was ecstatic that they were actually getting a custom castle. From what I understand, a lot of that was because of projection mapping. They wanted a much larger service to actually work with, something in the vein of maybe not Cinderella Castle, but maybe Disneyland Paris. So they really wanted a much bigger canvas to actually work with when it came to that. Also, too, it was one of those things, if we can give this a unique identity, maybe people think about it differently than maybe Shanghai or so forth. So I was happy with it. As far as like the architectural features, I actually do like them. I think it's the coloring that's got everybody like kind of, I don't know if I would have chosen those precise colors. And I know colors are a big thing right now, especially with Florida, but it's important. I am blanking on this name, and I can't believe this. John Hinch. Sorry.
Yes.
I really do apologize.
No problem.
He wrote the book on color. I mean, literally. and his work with color is legendary. It's extraordinary, but the kind of emotional quality it has is extremely powerful. And you don't get that 100% right. It just doesn't feel right. And I think that's what's going on right now with Hong Kong. I think that's where a lot of the angst is coming from. It's just the coloring, really. Yeah.
No, I completely agree. The castle itself, the architecture itself, the way they took the existing castle and added to it and made it larger, and it looks great. I love the actual architecture, the structure itself. But like you touched upon, and I think you hit the nail on the head, Dre, when you said it's the coloring. And I'm going to put a picture up right now of this castle. But when you look at this castle, the old castle maintains those bright blue rooftops. Yeah. So when you look at the castle, the first thing you see is the old castle and then this new thing behind it.
Yeah.
That's the problem. If they would have painted the castle a different color scheme where it felt more like the new castle, blended more with the old one,
a bit more cohesive,
it would be fine. Yeah, it's just that, you know, they almost highlighted the old castle with those blue rooftops. It just, your eye goes right to the old castle.
I know.
And that's the first thing you notice. And then you notice the big stuff, the additions in the background. So that's my only complaint. Overall, though, I agree with you. The architecture is gorgeous. I think it's a great addition. Yeah. I support it. It always bothered me. Like you mentioned, it felt like an imitation. Yeah, it did. It felt like I know, like during that Eisner era, they were kind of using Disneyland's 50th anniversary as sort of like a justification to like, to copy Disneyland's castle as an homage, but it always felt kind of cheap and lazy to me in a way, you know.
That's exactly what it was, and you know, and it just goes back to, hey, look, we went all out on Paris. We really got screwed. We really got hammered for problems that were not the Imagineers' fault, but of course they got the brunt of it because of how much they spent. Keep costs down, keep development dollars down. More importantly, what can we do for Hong Kong? Carbon copy design essentially is what happened.
Yeah. So I'm glad that Disneyland has a unique castle, like a unique castle again. I mean, It was Walt's original castle. It should stay unique. Mm-hmm. I don't think I'd want this to come to Anaheim. Like Sam mentioned here, would you want this to come to Anaheim? I
absolutely
don't.
Not. This is the hill I'm dying on. Never, ever, 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 ever happen at Disneyland in Anaheim. No, don't care. I don't care how great your projection show looks. Yeah. No, this is no.
Yeah,
absolutely not. This is iconic. This is the way Walt wanted it. If we can't keep anything of what Walt wanted, we can at least keep the icon. Okay, that's that's a hard pass for me.
I agree with you. I think that the park is malleable in terms of like it can change, evolve. That's absolutely what Walt wanted. But the castle's unique in that it, like you said, it's the icon. It's the heart, literally the heart of the entire park. To change that would just feel wrong. I mean, you can upgrade it, you can plus it, you can add new tile, you can new paint job, whatever, that's fine. But to change the actual physical building would just feel wrong, you know? And it felt wrong even to copy it, to be honest. When Hong Kong opened and they copied it, it felt dirty to me. Like, even that was like, oh man, what are they doing? And so I'm glad that Hong Kong has a different castle now, you know?
Well, and you say it's fine just to maybe paint the castle. There was criticism and pushback directed at Kim Irvine over the castle repaint that we just got. I mean, that's how it's like, well, wait a minute, hey, you don't want to change the character of this thing, all that kind of stuff, even though the architectural style was virtually identical of what we had before. But just the paint, it was like, hey, well, wait a minute, and we're experiencing that yet again in Florida, ironically. But architectural features, it's like you can't
do it.
Screw around with this thing that much. Now they have added a lot of ornate elements, architectural elements. It is, as far as compared to 1955, it has changed quite dramatically. Just with the additions that they have now. Go any further though, that's going to create a lot of uproar. So I'm actually glad that Hong Kong got this work done, especially pre-COVID. Probably not going to happen after, but to get it before this whole thing, I think it's great. If you want to repaint it later, you can. That's the great thing. You've already, built this whole thing up. If you want to change the color, you could. But Disneyland at California, no, hard pass.
Got it. Yeah, I agree with you. Now, what would you think? This is kind of a curveball, and this is a little bit of a plot twist, a little bit of a weird situation. But what would you think if Disney dug up some of the old concept art leading up to the final product of Disneyland's castle. Some of the concept art that was being thrown around, while Walt Disney was alive, and they used that concept art to change the castle. It's still technically Walt's, but it's not the one that he finalized.
Yeah,
how would you feel about that? Still be iffy to you?
I've heard the Imagineers bringing out these arguments before for a lot of this other stuff. It's like, well, wait a minute, but this was a concept that, that came up in Walt's era. It's like, well, it's a concept he rejected, maybe for a reason.
That's true. That's true. Yeah,
I get it. I understand. And you can't go those routes. And I'll definitely hate out. But in the end, this is what Walt wanted. Now, again, as far as that philosophy goes, I don't want to apply that to everything.
Right.
Obviously. But when it comes to the castle, this crowning achievement that he had during his lifetime, in his life, no, I don't think that specific thing should be touched. And I'm perfectly okay with okay. I know I've pushed back on a lot of different things that have come up, over the time. And look, I'm slowly getting into those gears here, but. When it comes to the castle, man, I mean that's sacred ground.
Yeah.
I think everybody knows it's sacred ground, and you just don't touch it. No,
I agree. You don't touch it. It's a unique aspect of Disneyland in that it's one of those few untouchable things where it's the icon. You can literally change anything else in the park.
Yeah,
but that's the one thing that you just can't.
No, No, until I hear a better argument for it, and I don't even think there is one, to be quite honest with you.
Yeah.
No, my position is firm.
Yeah. No, I agree with you, brother. I agree with you. Absolutely. Thank you, Sam. We appreciate the question. That was a great question. And the next question comes from CSRS. And CSRS is asking, what do you think the third gate at Disneyland Resort should be themed or could be themed to? And what IP should it have? Also, where do you think and what options Disney has to put this hypothetical third gate? What are your feelings on that?
So we just talked about theme in the context of Critter Country. To expand it out, though, listen, we have come from an era where, intricate theming, hard theming, maybe out of the Michael Eisner era, parks were a big deal. It was like, okay, Animal Kingdom, that's Animal Kingdom. We understand that, get that, got that. Disney's Hollywood Studios, get that, okay. Disney's California Adventure. Okay, yeah, but I mean, they were all themes, right? They were all like hard set themes. This is what this park is all about. We have thesis attractions for all these parks. Some of them are not with us anymore. The great movie, right? Yeah. But so we have themes that run throughout the entire park that create this kind of holistic approach to these parks. Yes, we have lived through that. Yes, that's the expectation. That's the standard. I can tell you right now, that's probably not going to be the standard going forward. And the reason I say that is because, you have these themes, right? You set them out, day one, here it is, go. The problem is attempting to keep those themes as more ideas come out. These things have to be far more, these things you would like to be far more malleable than maybe they were presented initially, because there's the swath of ideas that come out, IP, requirements and so forth. You really want to incorporate these in there, and sometimes that's barriers to entry that you're just placing on yourself. So I think the approach going forward, and we're already seeing this, is far more. I don't want to say that I say it, but I'll say it. Maybe corporately driven themes for parks. Maybe something that's more analogous. Maybe something that's just more general in terms of theming. I mean, look at Epic Universe.
Right. Exactly.
Does Epic Universe have a theme?
No.
Let's be honest here. That is a hodgepodge. Okay. And but look. If you look at Universal,
even Disneyland is kind of a hodgepodge, to be fair.
Well, I mean, yes, essentially. I mean, it was the place where Walt could just place out all the ideas that he had, and that was very malleable. And again, I mean, if you were to do like a castle, like not maybe not a castle park, but in the vein of a castle park where it could be very special in its own right, but not a hard set theme that runs through the entire park and there's no getting around it and that kind of thing, I think that's preferable. But if you look at like Epic Universe, I mean, it's very much going by the Universal Florida model, which is generic theme in front, and that's your access point to all these different IPs on the other end. And I think that's what, unfortunately, I think that's what corporate wants. I think that's what the edict is. It's like, look, we don't want to have these hard set limitations on what we develop going forward, because that's something that we'll have to live with for 50 years, that kind of thing, right? And and we're seeing that in California Adventure, right? I mean, it's like, okay, we're getting Marvel, and it's the Marvel campus, but when you thought Disney California Adventure in 2001, were you thinking Marvel? And look at Avatar. It's like, okay, that's integrated well into Animal Kingdom, but was that what came to mind back in 1998 or whatever? When that park opened. So it's like, you do have to factor these things in here. Going to the question though, I think that's what you might find is more of a generic park. Maybe a park that's not, just tightly themed. Maybe something that's a little bit more open to ideas, no matter how wild that they might be. Integrated well, of course. As far as what's going to be in that park, however, I don't know. I think there's, just on the stuff that's been developed so far, there's a lot of stuff in Tokyo that hasn't made its way out to any parks in the U.S. It could find a home there. We know that the Fantasyland expansion that's going on in Tokyo has a lot of ideas coming out of it. If they don't actually make it into Disneyland proper, those might have a home, maybe in some different form, in the new park, in the third gate of Disneyland. Avatar, I think that's a big one. Like, as controversial as it was going in, it has been a crowd pleaser, has been extremely successful in terms of guest satisfaction. Maybe not in terms of operational performance. Again, I think integrating 2 attractions into one building, maybe not the best idea. And I know they have overheating issues with, flight of passengers and so forth. There's a whole bunch of stuff going on there. But if you can get those things right, I think it would be, a welcome addition to a third gate if there's space, land accordingly, all that kind of stuff. As far as the third gate goes, though, I mean, like I said, any ideas that were going forward, push them back for 4 to 5 years at minimum. And we already knew that the third gate was going to be a
long way,
kind of a long distance view there. And again, I mean, they still want a third gate. Obviously, if the Disneyland Resort could be expanded in a huge way, that's something that they go for. But there are challenges going along with that. And I think Chapek is looking at it at the same style that Bob Iger is, which is, why concentrate our efforts on a new gate or a new park when the parks themselves that we currently have in our portfolio require so much work, just to get them up to snuff. So I think there's still opportunity. There's still opportunity in Disneyland, still opportunity in California Adventure, which I think we have a question on next round, and there's still opportunity in all 4 parks in Walt Disney World. So I think until those are completed, until those are, you can throw the third gate down the line there.
It's going to be a while. Mm-hmm. Okay, so if you were to ask me this question a few years ago, 6-7 years ago, I would have said I would have liked the third gate to be themed to like a heroes and like a heroes and like legends park, where you can have like a whole area for Star Wars, which is heavily based on heroes and legends, right? And you can have a whole area. You can even throw Pandora in there, and you can do the Marvel thing in there. You can have a whole heroes and legends park, and that would be great. But that idea, I think, is sort of out the window now, because we've had Galaxy's Edge, we're getting Avengers Campus, we have Pandora. So you kind of already have exhausted these in other parks already. Yeah. So that's kind of out the window. I think that if I could personally, if I was in charge, I would want to bring WestCott back, and do the whole like the Epcot kind of park. now I know Westcott was not based on countries; it was based on continents, right?
Yeah. Yep.
So, and I know how current Disney is. So we would never get the same Westcott that we were going to get in the '90s.
No.
Never going to get it. Never going to get it.
No,
so,
you can throw that out the window.
You can throw that out the window.
I know what you're saying here.
Yeah. But a good compromise would be, you know what? Let's do Westcott, right? Mm-hmm. Let's have the continents. But if Chapek wants to put in his IP, like say for the Asia continent, he wants to put a Mulan ride. For Australia, he wants to do I don't know, Rescuers Down Under, or you know, for the you know, America and all that, he can do Marvel, whatever. I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that, as long as the basic idea is Westcott, the continents, and you know, going to these different places of the world. If they want to tell that story though through their IP, I'm okay with that. But I do think Westcott would be a very cool kind of like a sister, like a cool bookend for the domestic park. You have Epcot in Florida, you got Westcott in Anaheim. It'd be a great little bookend. Epcot's becoming more IP anyway, so it's not even the same park it was a decade ago. No. So I don't see why there would be a problem with doing it. I'd be cool with it. You know, you can build a whole area themed New York. And have Iron Man or whatever if you want to do that.
Interesting.
You can have Europe, and you know what they're going to do with Europe. They're going to throw every princess in the world in there. They're going to have Tangled, and you know.
You could,
You can do all that.
Yeah.
I'm fine with that. You know, you can have the big centerpiece, the real impressive centerpiece that Epcot is known for. Maybe a different take on that for Westcott. Yeah. But that's what I would do. I would do Westcott, and where I would put it would be in the Toy Story lot. I mean, it's a huge area.
That's where it would likely go. Where it would likely go. I mean, and your ideas are pretty large, so they would have to. I think they would. The only barrier really is just acquiring maybe just a little bit more land because it is kind of a small parcel.
Yeah.
But that's where they would put it. It would be the strawberry fields.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. That's where you'd put it, and then it wouldn't be. You know, they can extend the monorail out there if they need to, or some sort of transportation system. But that's what I would do. I mean, it's a generalized enough theme, you know, being the continents of the world that you can, if, you know, corporate Disney, and I know a lot of fans don't want the IP, but that's the reality we live in, that they have enough room to work with, you know, in terms of putting their IP in there.
Yeah. And it goes back to my point. It's just some park that can encompass a large amount of IP and ideas that the Imagineers have going forward. One that's not so theme limiting. And I think you expressed a vision that is cohesive with that. I really do.
Yeah.
It's Epcot without Future World. There you go.
Exactly. Now I am gonna bring up something a little controversial, maybe controversial. But it won't be controversial for Anaheim fans, but it might be a little controversial for Florida fans. But, and I want your feelings on this. I really want your feelings on this, Dre. And I've said this many times in regards to, like, you know, additional gates, right, for the domestic parks. Mm-hmm. Florida, the Walt Disney World complex, you have 4 theme parks right now, right? Yeah. You have 2 water parks. It's a sprawling resort area. I mean, massive. As of right now, you would have to, an average family, to kind of get everything in, would have to realistically spend about a week in Walt Disney World to even get a chance to kind of see at least a good taste of everything, right?
At minimum
a week, right?
Yep.
Disneyland Resort is a 2-park resort with a shopping district. You can do that in 2 days, probably, maybe 3 at the most, you know?
Yeah.
I think growth wise, and I don't mean physical growth, I mean like financial growth, you know? Yeah. Hotel occupancy and things of that nature. Mm-hmm. Growth wise, I think it's smarter for Disney to add a 3rd park to Anaheim, because it's easier to tack on an extra day to the situation in Anaheim than it would be to add an 8th or 9th day to Walt Disney World. Like, realistically, people can't do 9 days on vacation nowadays, you know?
Right.
They can do 3 or 4 though, you know?
Yes. Yeah. So that was the issue that they came up with Animal Kingdom, was that Animal Kingdom didn't necessarily add a day when it was added. It just took away from a day that people were already spending in the park somewhere else. And so just because you added a day's worth of activity necessarily, people haven't gotten expansions on their vacation time. That was the issue. Now it's interesting because you bring up California and you bring up how maybe short people stay there. The whole idea of California Adventure was to keep people on property from visiting other parts of California, because what they were finding in the research was, people who come to Disneyland, they're not just seeing Disneyland, they're seeing other aspects of California. Oh, we just bring all that here and it'll be perfect. And then we instead of having them go all the way around, they just go here. They experience California here. California. Okay, so you can see how this comes up, and you can see how it's like, wow, how does this idea actually come about? That's how.
That Golden Gate Bridge is a real alternative to the real one, right?
This is the difference between park by committee and corporate and not roadie. Okay, this is what you get here. This is where this comes from. But to your point, though, yes, if they were going to do a new park in the United States, it would definitely be in California, and it would definitely be at Disneyland Resort. That is there aren't even discussions of a new park in Florida. Okay, and there weren't before COVID. There definitely aren't after. But like I said before, there is a room on Flower Street. Engineering that says that is all dedicated to a third gate out in Disneyland. Trust me, they want to expand Disneyland Resort. There's no question. And maybe that evaluation has changed a little bit now, but the potential is there. There's just an overwhelming supply of opportunity that could be soaked up there. There are logistical hurdles that they have to get over, but that's where it would be. And that and water park, and go down the line. That's what they would do.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, great question. Thank you so much for submitting that, CSRS. And the next question comes from Grant J's Disney Collection. Grant is asking, does Disney have plans to do something about the Paradise Gardens Park area of DCA? Somehow, I think that area needs a retheme. Or how about Hollywoodland? So, Dre, what are your thoughts on that Paradise Garden Grill area? For those of you not familiar, it's basically that back corner of DCA where it's kind of like right behind like Goofy Sky School.
Yep.
That whole basically it's a food court now. It is. Yeah. It's a food court. What are your feelings on that in terms of expansion, Dre? Is there potential there, or
there is. Goofy Sky School is there for a reason. It's just that's the best fit for something there now. It's tough because it shuts right up against that resort. So whatever you do, you have to take that into consideration. You have to take into consideration there's a cast thoroughfare behind Toy Story Midway Mania that you have to consider. That access way has to be there for various operational reasons. And I think it's what put the kibosh on. There was actually going to be an attraction there as part of Pixar Pier that never got approved, but you can see where that entrance marquee would have been had there been an attraction back there. It wasn't anything grand. I think it was at one point it was just Turtle Talk with Crush just relocated, from what I understand.
I remember that
was one of the ideas. Yeah. But realistically, is there potential? Absolutely. It's just how far are you willing to go to maximize on that potential? Maybe making the Paradise Bay slightly smaller to accommodate for a larger development back there in that corner. Obviously, you get rid of Goofy Sky School. Maybe the Paradise Garden Grill area is affected by any development from there, depending on the scale of whatever you're putting in there. There's certainly potential. It's just really, I think for right now, I think the larger priority is Hollywoodland.
Definitely.
Hollywoodland has a far more potential, far more real estate to work with. I know there was a plan to get rid of Monsters Inc. and the what is it? Is it stage 37? Is that what it is?
I think so. Something like that, yeah.
I'm blanking on all this stuff. I really do apologize, guys.
No worries, no worries.
The Philharmonic Theater.
Right.
There was a plan to encompass all of those regions, all of that area into something that was going to be pretty sizable. And there was also talk of maybe doing Marvel there instead of doing Marvel in the Bugs Land area. But I think it was just, well, if we can open that up, that the rest of the Simone parking lot that used to exist behind Twilight Zone Tower of Terror, if we can open, if we can have a lane that juts out there and take advantage of that real estate, then we can do something of epic proportion, of epic scale, which was coming. We were that close, but it seems like that's shifted over as well. I would say Hollywood Land is probably going to be the next area of large investment. There are facades that could definitely use a sprucing up, would definitely use a retheme. The Hyperion Theater, there was a concept to overdo it completely, give it a proper waiting area that was going to be enclosed, redo the entire exterior of the building. But it just never materialized, never happened. I guess the $1.2 billion worth of investment that was part of the 2012 redo of Disney California Adventure was just, just taken out and put towards California Adventure, put towards Buena Vista Street, put towards, Cars Land, Radio Springs Racers, and it just got absorbed. And unfortunately, there were some cuts that needed to be made. But I would say Hollywood Land is probably going to be, that's an area to watch in the future.
Definitely. I think Hollywood Land is priority one for Disney in regard to DCA. Mm-hmm. I think the Paradise Gardens Park is definitely like an expansion pad eventually. I would like to see personally, if I were to go into that area, I would like to see something like a Coco dark ride. And I think Coco works very well.
Interesting.
For DCA for a number of reasons. Number one, obviously because it's Pixar and we have a whole area now for Pixar Pier, But I also think Disney is very much into right now they're into inclusion, right?
Yes.
And I think that Coco though really does it's inclusion, but it's inclusion that makes sense for the theme of the park. It makes sense. Yeah. Like California is very much connected and very much tied to Mexican culture. So I think Coco fits California Adventure in multiple ways.
I can definitely see that.
Yeah, I would love to see a Coco, themed dark ride in that little back area. It can be beautiful with the music, the colors, everything would be great. They've already kind of primed you for that in a way because all the Coco stuff is already back there now. So you kind of already have this idea of Coco back there. So that would be ideally what I would put if they were to do something, that would be it. But I think that that's probably years and years down the road. I think you're right. I think Hollywood is really what they're going to set their sights on for the foreseeable future.
Yes. And look, you could see Coco integration in Hollywood Land. I wouldn't necessarily rule that out. There's no question. They have been wanting to capitalize on the Hispanic market in Southern California for a while now, and they have tried a lot to do so. And Coco was this great opportunity to do that, and I think it's great. I think it's awesome. I think it's you have a huge Hispanic population in Southern California. You should definitely cater to them in some way. And I think it's brilliant what they've done so far with limited resources and so forth. I think there really is opportunity for sizable investment. I know they really wanted to go the Coco route for the Mexican Pavilion in Epcot. I mean, they were this close. They got pushback from the restaurateur that was there. Apparently, it's not Disney that runs the restaurant. That's settled up next to the attraction there. It's some other company, and I guess they pushed back really hard on it. They were like, "Well, we get so much money from in this kind of Blue Bayou situation that we've constructed out there. We just can't have it down for any amount of time. That's actually That's actually why, if you wonder like why Walt Disney World doesn't get a lot of investment or doesn't get a lot of redos or doesn't get, a lot of it is because the vice president's down there. You have a lot of pushback. It's like, oh, there's the profit center for us. We don't want this down for this period of time.
Right.
Why don't we have a like a Nightmare Before Christmas overlay, for example, similar to how California does it or how Tokyo does it for their haunted mansion. It's because, a lot of these people come from, for once in a lifetime trips, and you don't want to have something down for 6 weeks or I think they have even got it down shorter than that.
Right.
But we don't still want to have it down for that time because we have to fulfill all these obligations. We have to present as we have to keep capacities high. We have to cater to all these demographics that are only coming down here for once in a lifetime vacations. We just can't have something down. And so it's very interesting how that works. But bringing it back to the point, I think I could definitely see Coco something or another, even just a dark ride. I mean,
yeah,
I'm. If you had to redo Monsters Inc. to Coco, would that necessarily be a bad thing? I don't think it. I don't think it would be.
Right.
I think there's a lot of opportunity for a lot of these different places. It's just, the parcels are smaller than Disney Imagineering would like to work with, if I could put it like that.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Grant, thank you so much. We do appreciate the question. Now the next question comes from Owen, and Owen is asking, at this point, what are the odds that Disney is going to defy Governor Newsom and reopen Disneyland? Woo! Owen is coming in hot, Dre. He's coming in hot. What do you think that the chances of that happening is? Like, do you think this is possible that Disney might just say, you know what, forget you, Gavin. We're going to reopen regardless, and what are you going to do about it? Do you think that there's a possibility they're going to do that?
Oh, as much as we would love it. And I can tell you right now that the Team Disney Anaheim people, there's a contingent there that have advocated for something or another down those lines. I can tell you right now, they are really upset with Newsom. I mean, really upset. It's just that we've shown that it works. We've shown that it's open. We've shown that we can perform well in Florida. Right now, Florida is actually expanding their capacity. They just announced that they were going from 25 to 35 just recently. Part of that is because of the plexiglass that they've added to certain attractions. For example, they added plexiglass dividers to Rise of Resistance and Mickey and Minnie's Wonderway Railway out in Disney's Hollywood Studios. And that was one of the big reasons why they could expand capacity from 25 to 35. Even though we think it might be a little bit more than that, but that's another story entirely. I mean, they have shown uncharacteristically that it can certainly work. There are opportunities for that, and I've heard a lot of arguments to the contrary, and they just don't hold water. It's shown that it can be done safely. You can, for all the regulations that are being put in place right now to shut down Southern California or California in general just completely, you can apply those same enforcement methods or those same policies to curtail spread and to not just have it explode as easily as you could just to lock it down. Like you could, what I'm saying is you can mitigate. But you can still have operation. There is a way to do it out in California.
What you're saying is basically don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. Is essentially.
Essentially. And people are like, well, the population density in Los Angeles is different than Florida. It's like, okay, Tokyo.
Right? Yeah, exactly. Tokyo.
The most densely populated place in the world. Okay. I think we can get around those things as well.
Right.
There are solutions, and it's just so unfortunate that they're helpless. There is a contingent that wants to defy the orders, but again, you have so much corporate responsibility. You're part of this larger corporation. Do you really want to? Your operating license could be at stake. If you defy these orders, you could take them in court, which they're likely to do, but I will say there are some lawsuits that have kind of paved the way for some of this stuff, and I think they really want to see what happens there before bringing their own suit. And we'll see how that goes. I mean, realistically, I've heard internally, probably not going to be till spring at the earliest.
Wow.
For Disneyland in California, and it's like, well, if it's 4 months or 5 months or whatever, is that really worth defying the governor's order and risking being able to operate in California at all? I mean, that's kind of that's kind of what you have to weigh. Yeah. And it's a rock and a hard place. There's no getting around it. I feel unbelievably badly for all the cast members that are affected, for all the positions that are affected, executive on down, Imagineering on down. It's horrible. It's a horrible situation, but I mean, they've tried. They've advocated. They've done all they could. Realistically, I mean, I know a lot of the internal talks right now with Disney, and this goes for both coasts, is really predicated on the vaccine, like very, very heavily. What they're thinking right now is, because general population might be inoculated as early as late summer. Wow. So if that's the case, if those timelines hold up, well, conceivably, maybe the 50th anniversary in Florida, which is still going forward, maybe that can kick off before the October 1st date. And so that's shifted the timeline of things a little bit. I'm hearing that Ratatouille might be open as soon as February. They're kind of holding off on that. I mean, it's complete. It's done. They're holding off on it just for things to kick up maybe a little bit more, to give people more reasons when things are open up a little bit more than they are right now, to really drive attendance. I'm hearing that Guardians of the Galaxy out there might be open as early as fall. Wow. Yeah, which, that's very interesting. I guess from what I understand, they're going to be starting production of Thor through, it would be 4? Yeah. For Love and Thunder, right? Love and Thunder. In Australia very soon. And the thinking is, because here's the thing. The film elements for Guardians of the Galaxy out in Florida were predicated on the Guardians of the Galaxy 3 production. Oh, wow. Because essentially doing what they did last time. So Guardians of the Galaxy as part of Tower of Terror, the redo, Guardians of the Galaxy Mission Breakout in California, they filmed the film elements during the production of Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2. They wanted to reproduce that for Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3. Of course, we know what happened with the director, that whole thing. Yeah. But so many of the characters, interestingly enough, are going to be featured in Thor that it's like, well, can we got actors hired, we got them in costume, can we just film those elements that we were going to for this attraction for that production instead of waiting on 3? It's like, okay, if we get that going, then we can really fast track the timeline and getting this thing open. So that's kind of the idea going on behind the scenes right now when it comes to that. Tron is another thing. It's 2022 at the earliest. 2022 at the earliest. Wow. And then after that, it's Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway in 2023, hopefully, in California. So that's kind of the timeline there. But to get back to the immediate, I'm hearing spring, guys. I'm hearing spring. Yeah, I think right now, because the vaccine stuff is really heating up, and they're already, I heard Orange County in California is already getting shipments of a vaccine. People in the UK are already getting shots in the arm. Ooh. Yeah, I saw a whole thing on it yesterday. And then didn't Canada's health officials approve its own vaccine, or like the Pfizer vaccine for distribution or something like that? I heard something along the lines like that. Yeah. So I think that like Disney right now is sort of like, okay, you know what, the vaccine is kind of rolling now. Mm-hmm. We're going to go ahead and kind of wait it out, probably a few more months until the vaccine kicks in to the general mass, and we'll go from there. I think right now they're not going to rock the boat.
because like you said, it's a huge company.
If they do, it'll be legally. It'll be in the courts. It will not be, Disneyland going rogue and saying we're open whether you like it or not. Yeah. No, it's not going to be like that.
Not going to be like that.
Mm-hmm.
Not going to be like that. So I think once we get the vaccine out here and the numbers start to come down a little bit, I think we're going to start to see a loosening of everything. I think you're right. I think that it's going to be spring, maybe early summer, May, June, around that time. But it's wild to think though that Disneyland will be closed. I mean, if that holds true for a full calendar year and then some, Yep.
Yeah, a full calendar year. Oh boy. Look, and hopefully, we've had our problems with Newsom in the past. Hopefully he doesn't, I know he wanted to put together an independent commission to evaluate the vaccine on their own kind of thing. I know how you evaluate science. I think we'll just stick with the real experts out in the FDA and not some California machination. But
I think we're good, Newsom. We're good.
We're good. I think we're okay. I think if the FDA says it's good, that's for others to evaluate themselves, but I think that's the standard that we all want to kind of have as a minimum. It's absolutely ridiculous what's going on in California right now. It's absolutely ridiculous what's going on with the parks, how they're being treated, how everything's going on right now. It's ridiculous. It's I have other opinions, but we'll save it.
It is. I agree. No, I agree. I'm a Californian, man, and I have a lot of opinions too, and I try to, there's a lot going on out here that's ridiculous. Like, perfect example, we talked about this before we started recording, but you can't eat inside, right? Mm-hmm. But then you go down and you see all these restaurants that now have fully enclosed tents, vinyl tents in their parking lots. I'm like, okay, well then why can't we just eat inside the restaurant? If you're going to have a fully enclosed vinyl tent, just open the windows and the door to the restaurant and let's eat inside. It makes no sense to me. It's like the same craziness, where.
Yep. And at the same time that they pack in like sardines, boatloads of passengers on flights coming into the state. I mean, there is no like social distancing on a flight right now. You're packed in there like you always have been. It's like, well, our HEPA filtration systems they're top notch. Okay, well, let's get that out there. And, right. I mean, obviously there's a path forward. Okay, well, let's do that.
Right.
Different standards for different folks, I guess.
Yeah. Well, and Disney management, I don't remember which official has said this, but I think they've all kind of echoed it to some degree, that, the rules in California feel very arbitrary.
No, yeah, absolutely.
And I'm all for, look, I take COVID very seriously. I wear a mask. I believe in all that stuff, but the rules have to make sense though. It can't be just rules for the sake of rules.
Yes.
And a lot of stuff feels like rules for the sake of rules. And that's my problem, really, Yep.
Yeah, I mean, you're almost guaranteeing non-compliance because of the arbitrariness of the rules themselves. It's very hard to tell somebody, okay, you have to do this, you have to do this, you have to do this, but this thing you also have to do, even though it's conflicting with the last thing. And it's like I'm kind of falling off the waiver right here. I'm kind of I don't know.
Yeah,
and you're starting to see that crack a little bit out in the with the populace in California. They're starting to like, okay, well, we've done everything we can, we locked ourselves in, but then you just imported all these these out-of-state tourists and flooding our area with seemingly viral load, and it's like, well, we did everything we could and it wasn't good enough. It wasn't enough. So again, it's and look at Florida. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, the governor out there has thrown caution to the wind. He is just, look, you're open. There are no limitations on any of your businesses, no mask mandates. You can go back to 100% if you wish. I mean, Disney, if they wanted to, they could go back to 100% right now. There's nothing stopping them from doing that. Now, they're choosing not to. I mean, they're choosing to be, a bit more responsible. Yeah. But I can tell you that there are no limitations to prevent them. And some parks are. I mean, some parks are skirting that. And they're just not telling everybody. They're not announcing their capacity restrictions and so forth. So And if you look at the numbers over there, they're not even close to even LA County at this point.
It's crazy.
It's insane.
Absolutely crazy. Absolutely crazy. Well, thank you, Owen. We appreciate the question. That was a great question.
Absolutely.
So that kind of concludes the Q&A portion. But I think that I think we wanted to talk a little bit though before we go about Mandalorian.
Have to.
We got to talk about Mandalorian.
Have to. We have to talk about this.
What is on your mind in regards to Mando?
Look, this is what happens when you have people who know the lore, love the franchise, know the franchise, actually contribute to the franchise. This is the difference you're starting to see. I mean, it not only looks like Star Wars, it feels like Star Wars. Like just and I'm even going past the what is it the I guess you would call them fan service moments. I'm going past on that. It feels like Star Wars. The characterization feels right. The characters look like they inhabit the world just like beside our classic characters that we know and love. I mean, it's Star Wars. There's no getting around it. It's Star Wars. It feels like Star Wars, and it's one of the few times that I've had recently that it's like, oh wow, okay, this is it. Like this is what I remember. This is what it's all these. My childhood's coming back. It's really cool. It's just a fantastic. It's a fantastic series. It's very, it has a bold vision. It's going in a lot of interesting directions. It's how it can be integrated into the larger Star Wars world is fascinating, right? Yeah. Just even little things too. Like for example, in not this previous episode, but the previous episode before that, where we had the okay, it's going to be spoilers.
We can do spoilers.
Okay, all right. Where we saw Ahsoka for the first time.
Yes.
That episode. They, you had Mando mention, oh yeah, well they have two HK-87 droids. HK-87, that's going back to Knights of the Republic HK-47.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because the Knights of the Republic timeline where HK-47 comes from is supposed to be 4,000 years before the Galactic Civil War, before the movies as we know them today, their timeline. Well, if you adjust for 4,000 years, 1, 2, 3, 4, HK-87, boom, it's right there. And it's I thought that I was like, oh, man, that's really cool. That is obviously somebody knew the lore, know where to pull stuff from, and boom, slapped it right in there. Other things too, like we just saw them on a more fleshed out appearance with the Dark Troopers.
Yes.
I had my thinking was, oh, those are Dark Troopers. Those are Dark Troopers back when they were first introduced at the very tail end of the Ahsoka episode. It's like, that's what they're doing. And it's like, if you know Dark Troopers, that's going way back to like the Dark Forces game series back in like the 90s, That's where the Dark Forces, Dark Troopers come from, and to see their inclusion, it's like, oh my God, somebody actually knew the lore to that extent to actually introduce them, and it works.
Well, that's the fantastic thing about Filoni. This guy is like, a walking encyclopedia for Star Wars. He loves this stuff like crazy, and then you have Jon Favreau, which also a huge fanboy in and of himself, and then he's a great director on top of that, and you have these great men and women, Deborah Chow, and all these great people working on this show.
Yep.
I mean, it works so perfectly. And the cool thing too, and like you said, it feels like Star Wars. It really does, and it feels like Star Wars. It's like it stays true to the Star Wars energy and the vibe about family. Yes. But it kind of redefines it in a way too. Like we've seen a lot of different things. We've seen brother-sister relationships, right? With Luke and Leia and things of that nature. Husband-wife with Anakin and Padme. But we've never really seen the family dynamic of what we see with Mando and Grogu, Baby Yoda. So it introduces, we never seen that dynamic before, like the single dad kind of vibe.
Mm-hmm.
It introduces that new version of the family to the Star Wars lore. It's true to the overall vision of Star Wars of being family, but it's a new take on it, and it's so brilliant. It's such a different direction, but still so familiar, you know? I absolutely love that.
And Dave Filoni's philosophy is like, not just family, but friendship.
Right.
That's kind of the theme of a
Han and
lot
Chewie.
of stories. Yeah. That his saying is, friends are the most valuable resource in the galaxy. So it is his kind of thing, and you can kind of feel that from this. You know, Mando's making kind of friends that he's pulling from along the way, and it feels kind of, it just has a good feel to it, but also too the the kind of Grogu Mando dynamic is really cool for the reason that you say. I mean, it's just all those things, and it's like, wow, you have people that not only know the lore but know how to tell a great story, and it's just all coming in this beautiful mix. And honestly, it's pulled some Phantom Menace types and stuff into it, saying that's not bad. I will continue watching your show.
Yeah, so it's not too shabby.
It's very cool. It is awesome. They're pulling it. They're actually pulling it off, and now we know we've got Thrawn maybe being reintroduced, which would go along with this time period of the Thrawn trilogy. Back in the Legends days now, but it's all kind of happening. It's all kind of it's really cool.
Well, and the cool thing too, and this is kind of like what Star Wars has sort of done in the past, and Lucas did this too, like the prequels. When those came out, obviously they were panned, and a lot of fans didn't like them, or there was a lot of critiques. And I've always loved the prequels. I am a Hayden Christensen fanboy. I think he was phenomenal as Anakin. I know that a lot of people disagree; they don't like his acting, but I actually thought he did really, really well. But I digress. I mean, but I do like the prequels, but a lot of people did not.
Yeah.
But what George Lucas did, which was very brilliant, was like he sort of introduced this like ancillary material with the Clone Wars to sort of fill in gaps, and to sort of like the prequels gave you the outline or the bones, and then the Clone Wars kind of put the meat on those bones. Yep. I feel like Mando's kind of doing the same thing, and they really have an opportunity here to do, because the sequel trilogy, like you said, with Phantom Menace, and there's been a lot of critiques about that trilogy. What they can do with Mando is they can sort of do what George did with the prequels. Sort of put some meat on those bones, and I think we're kind of seeing that a little bit with those tanks in that one episode. We thought maybe the prelude to like the cloning for Snoke and things like that. They're setting it up, Well,
you're seeing even the troop transports that the stormtroopers came down in. Those are very reminiscent of the troop transports that we see at the beginning of Episode 7. So, I think you're seeing. I think you are seeing that. I think you're seeing like, okay, how can we provide the connective tissue to really bring these two worlds in and really make them part of the much larger story that Star Wars deserves and rightfully is.
Yeah.
It's just. It's tough. It's tough to do world building in a very interesting way.
Yeah,
I thought prequels went too far. The new trilogy maybe didn't go far enough.
Right.
And this is really an avenue that Mandalorian can actually take to integrate these new worlds. So I think it's fascinating. I think it's really, really interesting. I'm just so marveled at the really consistency that this series brings to the lore. How many things they pull from constantly, and you can say that's fan service, but it's like it's kind of it's on that line. It's definitely like references that you get from the previous films, but it makes sense in the larger context of the world.
Right. It's not corny.
No.
It makes sense. It's fan service. Like, look at this. This is cool.
Yeah.
But it's not done in a way where it's cornball, cheesy, doesn't fit. It makes sense. Like the whole Boba Fett thing makes total sense for this series,
Absolutely. Yep. Yeah, and part of the, integrating stuff from Legends. In Legends, Boba Fett did live and, kind of, had an identity past when we last saw him in the Sarlacc pit in Return of the Jedi. And we're kind of seeing that, right? We're seeing that with the implementation of Boba, and they brought back the actor, which is really cool. And so it has that kind of consistency with it. And And it's just, and you got the slave one, and it's like, okay, this is kind of working. This is kind of, I can feel this, and I think they're doing an excellent job. I really do. I think the show is coming to its own. I think it's must watch. It's got that label on it every single week, and I think it's really brilliant.
I completely agree, man. I completely agree. And one thing I want to ask you is, because with the Ahsoka episode, right?
Yeah.
She said, take Grogu, Baby Yoda, to the Seeing Stone.
Yes.
And a Jedi will come. Maybe a Jedi will sense him and come. And the next episode,
the ultimate
went
question,
to the Seeing Stone, but no one ultimately came. But I still think that story hasn't been done yet. That whole thing hasn't fully completed yet. I do think we're going to see a Jedi come.
Oh yeah.
But what's your prediction though? Like, who do you think is going to be the guy or the girl who's going to come? Who's going to get the signal from Grogu and show themselves for that?
Well, I mean, listen, Luke was attempting to establish an academy.
Yeah.
Between the events of 6 and 7, right? I mean, that was happening. So any number of possibilities there, although it may not have, the timeline might not be, completely coherent with that idea, but that was happening. If Thrawn is back, is Ezra back? Yeah. Is that what we're ultimately going with? I mean, that was Ahsoka's mission.
Right. At
the very end there was to find Ezra, and maybe she did. Maybe, maybe pieces had to be in play for him to actually come back. That's an interesting scenario. What about Luke? Luke's still out there. It's not like he went. He was supposed to be contributing to the New Republic during this time period in some way. He did train a little bit of Leia. We know that happened. So there's any number of possibilities. And I think this is why they went down this route, is just to
play with us,
to have that ultimate question, like, who is that Jedi that Ahsoka's talking about?
Well, those are great guesses, and I also think that I think Obi-Wan Kenobi is a possibility. And look, if it wasn't for the Obi-Wan series, and I know this sounds really cynical, but if it wasn't for the Obi-Wan Kenobi series coming out soon, I probably wouldn't include him in that short list. But because that's coming, I could definitely see the desire to sort of plant that seed or that connectivity and have Kenobi come in and kind of get people hyped, because it would be Ewan McGregor. Fans would go freaking nuts. Yeah. And it would really kind of catapult, okay, well, this is what's coming now with Kenobi. I can definitely see that happening. Kenobi, I think, is definitely on the short list.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I never thought about that possibility, but you could make it work. Again, it would be Ian McGregor, but it would be Alec Guinness.
Right.
Ian McGregor, which
would
be very, it'd be a very interesting dynamic there. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, I can see that. I can see that happening, because it would sort of play to their next series. I could definitely see, Bob Iger and everything being like, oh, that's good. Synergy.
No, I could definitely see them going that route just for, I mean, it would be, one, it would be, it would be fan service, but it would be, there's a proper way to integrate it, and it would definitely set up for the next show for sure. There's no question. I know. Have we heard anything about the Obi-Wan series? Because I've heard that it was that whole team there is not where it should be.
Yeah. Well, the last thing I heard, which is actually pretty recently, I think like a week ago, I heard that they're starting filming on that in January.
Oh, okay.
So it's a go. I just hope that Deborah Chow is still connected to it, because I haven't heard her name connected to it in a long time. And I think what she did with Mandalorian was freaking amazing. I really want her connected to the Kenobi series. I want to see what she can do with that. But as far as I know, last thing I heard, it was like about a week or so ago, filming starts for Kenobi in January. So
any new series, any new projects, just have people behind the scenes know the Lord, know what Star Wars is, and it'll be right as rain. You can essentially do whatever, but understand what Star Wars is, understand the lore. Okay. And then go forward. Look, and what's really fascinating to me is just the scale of this show. Just you can have like the Krayt Dragon, which is we've never seen that on screen before.
Right.
This huge epic, introduction to the series. To the small little details like the Krayt Dragon Pearl afterwards, it's like, oh, they're looking. That's what the same people they're looking for, the pearl.
Awesome.
Sure enough, that's and then you see Boba Fett fighting stormtroopers. What he's doing it with a gaffy stick. Where'd he get the gaffy stick? Well, from his time on Tatooine. So it's all these little references, but they all make sense. They all are consistent. They're all coherent with the world, and I just love that.
I love it.
Right up my alley.
I absolutely love it. And then they're kind of planting seeds for what would become the First Order, and things like that. So it kind of ties into the new sequel trilogy.
Yep.
But it plays to the old trilogy.
Yep.
And it's just freaking brilliant.
Oh yeah. I mean, even if you look at Legends, there was a remnant of the Empire. These things did exist, and now it's like, okay, well, we know there's a First Order, so we'll just tie the two, and it's working out. It's working out well. I'm very excited for this series. I'm very excited about where it goes. There's a lot of loose ends that can be tied up right now in really creative ways. I'm all in, man. I'm all in.
I'm all in too, man. It's a fun little series, and really, like, man, did Disney hit the gold mine with Baby Yoda or what?
Oh my god!
I wish I had. I mean, my God! I thought the Frozen phenomenon was something unreal. Like when Frozen came out, it was like I've never seen anything like this.
Yep.
And then Baby Yoda comes on the scene, and it's like, oh yeah, we'll hold my beer.
Oh, it's insane. It's like nothing you've ever seen before. I mean, the guy, he steals every single shot he's in. So that's
he's great.
It can work for you, or it can work against you. So you have to use it properly. But steals every single scene he's in. It's just merchandise, just a gold mine. I mean, just even today, it's kind of interesting because I thought, oh well, the strike while the hour was hot. They had to get product in, and COVID happened and all that kind of stuff. No, he's still extremely popular.
Yeah.
From what I understand, that product line is still, extremely successful. Interesting. We just saw a patent application actually for a Grogu type Alexa or what do they call it? It's not Google Home anymore. It's is it Nexus or something? Anyway, Nest. It's like a product like that where you could have this kind of something that looks like a Grogu figure. You could talk to it and it actually do commands for you, like turn off your lights, and so forth to the Force. It was like, okay, there's endless possibilities with this product right here. Or with this character, just endless. So yes, goldmine.
Absolute gold mine. Mm-hmm. I mean, you have a character like Yoda who is so beloved. My grandma, by the way, rest in peace. My grandma though loved Yoda. That was like one of her favorite characters. And but a lot of people, and she wasn't like a huge Star Wars nerd, but she had this affinity for Yoda. And a lot of people I feel are kind of like that, like with Baby Yoda. It's like the non-Star Wars nerds. Like we're knee deep in the Star Wars stuff. But there's people that like I know at work that have never watched a Star Wars movie that are like, oh man, I love Baby Yoda. I watch every episode of Mando because of Baby Yoda. It's like it's so funny. It's kind of brought it to all like the what do they call the normies in Harry Potter? I totally forgot. Muggles, yes. Yeah. It brought Star Wars to the Muggles.
And that's and I've seen some non-Star Wars fans. They wouldn't touch Star Wars with a 10-foot pole, but they're laughing at the Yoda memes and they're watching episodes, and it's like, okay, yeah, well, and it's funny because that's what they wanted to do with the sequel trilogy, right? They wanted to broaden the base. They wanted to expand it out, and to a certain extent they did, to a certain extent they didn't. They weren't 100% successful, but this is doing it. And it's like, okay, well, this shows you. I mean, yes, it's a cute character. It's lightning in a bottle for sure. They maybe more luck than intent, but it shows you that it can be done, that it can be expanded out. You can be consistent with the lore, and people will love you for it.
Yeah, absolutely. And isn't it funny how, and maybe this isn't their fault. I mean, no one really could have predicted the Baby Yoda phenomenon, but isn't it funny, like Disney, they release this stuff like the Sith Troopers, and these marketing guys are like, oh, this is going to be hot. We're going to release the red stormtroopers. This is going to be so hot. This is going to be like unbelievably hot. And it kind of falls flat.
Yes.
But then they hide Baby Yoda like, oh, no big deal. Like, this thing is not going to make a difference. Like, no one's going to care about this thing. And then Mando drops, and this thing is like the biggest thing. It's like Elvis. It's like,
you know, sometimes you think you know what's going to hit. You think you know, okay, these kind of things. But sometimes just things just explode, and you can't explain it. Like, for example, the purple wall in Tomorrowland, to bring that back to the parks. The you know, that was the original Instagram wall. It was just a purple wall. It was just something that they painted and, you know, just this thing. And now it's turned into its own thing. It's like this big phenomenon where you have Instagram walls all over the parks now. It just took on a life of its own. So it just happens. It just happens. Sometimes that happens. But you know, and from what I understand, they hid Baby Yoda because of spoilers and stuff, which is fine.
That's fair.
You know, I heard them. They would have loved to have been on the bleeding edge of that. Believe me, people were making stuff. You know, it was just they were that desperate for Baby Yoda content or Grogu content, and sometimes you just don't know. You know, Frozen. I think they had ideas. Okay, well, it's sisters. We have dual merchandising opportunities. It's going to be great. No idea. They just had no clue.
Right. They thought it would be another Tangled. Successful, definitely. But they thought it'd be another Tangled princess movie. And it turned out to be this gigantic hit. You know, that they were really caught by surprise. I think the same thing happened with Baby Yoda. Grogu was just like, okay, yeah, he's cute. But they had no idea. I mean, they had
no idea. But, you know, what's really interesting about this is even though Grogu it's that it's that carrot that gets you in the door. It's that weenie that gets you in.
Yeah.
It's still strong. It's still a strong show on its own, and it's keeping audiences. And I think that's the real success of Mandalorian. It's not just about Grogu. It's about, hey, your attention is fixated on the larger story around him.
Yeah, absolutely. And it makes you hungry. Like if you're like a muggle or whatever, you know, getting into this, you're like, Baby Yoda, might be the gateway drug. Yeah. but then once you're in, it's like, oh, but I want to, what about these Mandalorians though? I want to learn about them. Yeah. Oh, what about these Jedi? I want to learn about them. Oh, what about who's Admiral Thrawn? I want to learn about him. Yes. And then you start to really, you know, you start to basically, you become a super fan. Yeah. Little by little, you know.
Oh, yeah, and it takes real craft. It takes real mastery to pull that off.
Yeah.
These are just the guys that do it, though, so it's awesome.
It's awesome. It's awesome. Thank you, Dre. Brother, I always appreciate you coming on. I really do appreciate it. I want to have you on because, you know, Thursday is a big day. It's the Investor Day.
Yes. Tomorrow, 4:30 Central or something like that is when it's going to be. Yep, that's the big day.
So if they drop some big news, maybe, you know, I'd like to have you back on soon. We'll talk about that. I think there's going to be some bombshells.
Oh, there's going to be some bombshells. I can tell you one thing. You know, when Warner Brothers came out with their recent announcement that they were going to have essentially any films in 2021, shockwaves do the industry just on that. So I think we're going to get some big stuff.
Big stuff. So it'll be very interesting. But tell everybody at home, again, just remind everybody where they can find you on social media and what have you.
Best place to find me, on Twitter, as always. On Twitter, at VashSky. That's at V as in Victor, ASHSKY.
Perfect. Right, yes, definitely follow him on Twitter. He does amazing stuff. He researches everything. I love your threads. You really break everything down.
Oh, yeah.
You do an amazing job as always, Dre. So
I got such reception on the last one. It really blew me back. So that was really cool. But yeah, feel free to reach out, private message me. I mean, I definitely have a conversation with anybody. So feel free.
Awesome. And thank you all for watching. I really do appreciate it. Thank you. And also, I do want to remind you, if you want a question answered in a future Q&A, go ahead and submit it in the community tab on my channel. And that's where I pull from. So ask your question, and it might be in a future Q&A. Thank you all so much for watching. And thank you again, Dre. And have a wonderful, wonderful day. May the force be with you. Bye-bye.
I do.